This is Julianne Condia, host of Rewritten. Thank you so much for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Strike three, you're out.
Welcome back to the baseball show that goes beyond the white lines. This is Caught Listening on the Public House Media Network. I'm Christian Heimel here with you as always. You can find this show on Spreaker and Stitcher.com, Apple and Google Podcasts as well, iHeartRadio, and of course, publichousemedia.org. We are in the month of March, which means there is baseball this month, and not just spring training baseball, but in just a couple of weeks, actual Major League Baseball games. And so we continue on with our 2020 MLB season preview. We are into the second half, our fourth division breakdown here. It is the American League West, probably the most contentious division of the year, and I don't think I'm underselling that, and I certainly don't mean necessarily by the standings, but what will be discussed and talked about as we go throughout this season with the American League West. Of course, the Astros, the Mariners, the Athletics, the Angels, and the Texas Rangers. To help us break this down, a friend of the show, and we're happy to have him here for the first time on Caught Listening, but a friend of ours from Press Row. He is Matt Yallof of MLB Network. Matt, really appreciate the time. Thanks so much.
Well, I appreciate you asking me, and I'm with you, man. March is a great month. It's a great month for a lot. There's a lot going on, and including opening day. I can't wait.
Well, we got just about 3 weeks until opening day here. In fact, actually, 3 weeks from opening day, and it'll be a lot of fun here. But the AL West, and like I said in the opening, I really do believe this. It's not just in the standings, because when you and I can talk about the on-field play, but given the Astros offseason and all the turmoil and what we've already seen in spring training, has the potential to be the most talked about, the most debated division in all of baseball this year.
Yeah, you're right, and it's unfortunate. The whole thing is so unfortunate for the game, and more importantly for the fans. I don't remember. I've been watching baseball for, gosh, I'm going to give away my age if I say it, but I'm going to say it anyway. I'm going to go with, I'm trying to figure out how old I was. So let's call it 30, no, hold on a second. I'm going to call it about 45 years of baseball.
Yeah.
And I don't recall, and I could be wrong about this, but I don't recall going into a year where one team is being talked about for something that's not complimentary as much as this is going to be happening and is happening with Houston. I don't recall it. It's really odd and very unfortunate, but you're right, though. It is going to be a very difficult year for that team, I believe, on the field and off the field.
And here's the impressive part. I was thinking about this morning too, actually, because there were we'll talk about Ken Giles and the comments he made earlier in the week, but Brandon Taubman, who was fired after the AL Championship Series for his outburst regarding Roberto Osuna, is completely forgotten. That whole issue, that whole scandal, that whole locker room outburst is completely forgotten because of this. So it's not just the sign stealing, but this incredible offseason that has just been kicked off with losing the World Series, and then this Brandon Taubman issue all the way through the sign stealing. This has been quite possibly one of the worst off seasons you could have for a perennial title contender in Major League Baseball.
Oh, yeah. I don't think that's even a stretch. I think that's a fact. I think what I would say is, and I'm not around that team. I'm based in New York, so I'll see them on television. I will see them when they come to New York, and if I'm assigned their playoff series, I will see them then. But I'm not around them on a regular basis. I want to say that before I say my next thing. It appears to me that there was some major dysfunction going on in that organization, not just sign stealing, but a lot of things that just weren't right. And you mentioned Brendan Taubman and the comments. It seems now as you look at it in its totality, that it was ugly, you know, and they were doing things and acting in a way that you just can't, you scratch your head in today's world to be able to justify or at least do things that you think are justifiable, and they are so not justifiable. So yeah, I'll finish this. I'll finish it with this. You said they were a World Series team. It's a good thing they didn't win.
Yeah.
I'll just throw it out there. They lost. They lost all 4 games at home. Mm-hmm. That is the only good thing that comes out of this.
You're not wrong at all. He's Matt Yallof, MLB Network, joining us here on Caught Listening, breaking down the American League West. Let's talk a little bit about the on-field stuff, and we'll get into everybody's predictions and where we think this division is going to shake up come September. But when you look so far in spring training, obviously with the sign stealing, Dusty Baker even came out and said, he hopes Major League Baseball comes out and protects his guys. You're seeing people troll the Astros as best they can, whether it be Trevor Bauer deliberately giving the signs that he's throwing or Anthony Rizzo mic'd up on ESPN. You're seeing, at what point, if at all, this season, does it kind of stop?
I think it depends on the guy or the team. Trevor Bauer, he's a beauty. I mean, he's a piece of work. And from a guy like that, you kind of chuckle because he is his own guy. You don't have to love him. Yeah. You don't have to hate him. He says what he wants, and he does what he wants, and that's his thing. I don't know. I think there are going to be a number of stages to this. Mm-hmm. One stage is what happens when they go to Oakland, when they go to the Yankees. They're not, unless I missed it, they're not playing the Dodgers. Mm-hmm. So I have to think about that. So you're going to have a reaction, very strong reaction from certain teams. There are certain teams, like when they play Kansas City, is there going to be a problem? I don't know. Right. The Angels, Mike Trout came out and said something. And it's not the Trevor Bauers of the world that get me fired up. Mm-hmm. It's when a guy like Mike Trout, who I have dealt with on many occasions, is the most mild-mannered, kindest, and most patient baseball player who is currently playing today, who I have dealt with. When he is as angered as he was to say something publicly, that to me is an eye-opener. That is an eye-opener. That one for me was like a whoa. Because if you think about it, he doesn't do that. Right. That's not his way. He is an under-the-radar, I love the game, I'm going to play it to the best of my ability, I love my teammates. But to hear that was big for me. So real quick, just to wrap up your question, I have a sense there are certain cities that are going to be very difficult, very difficult. Mm-hmm. Now, the bean balls and the hit-by pitches, the league is going to have to do something before it gets out of hand. Right. I don't think it's going to get out of hand. I think you're going to see a couple of guys take one in the ribs. Mm-hmm. I do, and they're going to have to live with it. A couple of things I don't think are acceptable under any circumstances. Throwing at a guy's head is never okay. In my opinion, it's not. It's not okay. That's number one. Number two is if you do something to take action because you believe they were in the wrong, and they were in the wrong, obviously, you better have your yard clean. You better
Yeah.
I don't want to see. I'm throwing out a team. I'm not going to name team. Team X.
Right.
I don't want to see Team X going after Springer and Altuve, and then 6 months later find out that team was cheating. It just didn't work.
No, you're not wrong, and I think that's the interesting part. I think this will eventually, personally, I think by May, this is all cleared up. I really do. I think baseball will handle itself, and whether Commissioner Manfred does something or not, who knows? I think it'll be very difficult for Commissioner Manfred in the first 2 weeks to do anything. First few homestands or first few series, especially when the Astros visit Oakland for the very first time and potentially face Mike Fiers. That could be interesting. But this will certainly stay with the fans. But I 100% agree with you on the beanballs and whatnot. And I see spring training almost as kind of this free pass, essentially. It wouldn't shock me at all if I don't know the spring training schedule, but if the Astros and Dodgers get together and it's Darvish against, it wouldn't surprise me at all if Darvish comes right at Altuve in a spring training game, and because you can get away with it in that. Like, that's the area you can get away with it. But
you can, but you run the risk. Look, if you're throwing a deadly weapon is what you're doing.
Yep.
And you really run the risk of a couple of things. One is hurting a guy to the point where he's out for 3 months. You break a couple of ribs or you break a hand. You run the risk of hurting yourself because, if the league says, BS, this is not acceptable, and we're now going to make an example out of you Darvish. You used him, I'll use him. Well, you Darvish's team now is going to be in jeopardy because now we lose him for a while. And now we don't know if the Astros, when they're on their home turf and they feel safe, they're going to take it out on somebody. I don't want that. I don't know. People are angry. They have every right to be angry. Some people more angry than other people. Some fans, some teams. But you don't want to see this become the Wild West. You really don't. I don't think anybody benefits from that. If you want to send a message on opening day, and Springer steps up and wears one. Springer's no dummy. These guys know. They know what's coming. But there has to be a limit, and there has to be all right, internally, I'm talking now from another team. If Bob Melvin and his guys are so mad, and they may have the right to be, have to know we're doing this and we're done.
Right.
It can't be 15 of the 18 times you play each other. It can't be.
Right. No, you're 100% right there. We're talking with Matt Yallof of MLB Network here about the AL West. Let's get to some of the actual on-field stuff here as we get into the season. Because over the last few years, this obviously has been the Astros division. They've had slight challenges over the last couple of years with the Oakland Athletics. The Angels seem to be a better team offensively. There are still questions, obviously, in that rotation. The Astros, with the loss of Garrett Cole, you don't know what you're going to get with Lance McCullers coming back as well. It feels as though even with this sign-stealing thing, there are actual legitimate baseball questions surrounding the Astros. So the biggest question, I think, that is posed out there is, can the Astros and will the Astros still win the American League West?
Yeah, I think they do, and I think they will. This is not a question of a team that won 106 games, or whatever it was. And if they weren't stealing signs, they would have won 75 games.
Right.
That's not what this is. This is a darn good team. Offensively, for sure. Pitching-wise, will they go backwards? Well, you don't lose Garrett Cole and get better.
Right.
So the one thing they have going for them is they're in a division that they own. And as good as the A's were, they were still, if I'm not mistaken, 10 games back.
Yeah.
That's a lot of games. Now, will the gap be that big? I don't know. the A's to me are still the threat. They're such a wild team because they kind of have that Rays thing going on where every year we all look at each other and we go, can they really do this again? And then you go, wait a minute. How are they doing this in the first place? Mm-hmm. They would be, to me, the threat. But yeah, Houston can still win. It will not be a cakewalk. It won't. It won't. They're gonna have other things on their mind, like we talked about. That's gonna be a challenge. That's gonna be tough. Let me give you my deal on the Angels, and it's really a shame. Look, we all want to see Mike Trout in the playoffs.
Yes.
Who doesn't, right? I mean, if you don't, then you're not paying attention.
Right.
I just don't think that pitching. What are they winning? Is my question. Are they winning the division? No, they're not. Okay, so now you got a couple of wild cards. Okay, so can you make the case that the Central is mediocre enough that they don't get a wild card? Yeah, I can make that case. Sure, I can make that case. But are you saying now that the Angels are better than Tampa Bay, Boston, maybe the Yankees if they don't win their division? Are they better than Oakland? And I'm going to say that while they're better, they were 18 games under 500. Yeah. So if a wild card last year in the AL was 95 wins.
Yeah.
Think about that. Do you go from 72 to even 90? I don't think you do. I don't.
Now, and there's something about this this pitching rotation that you don't know what you're going to get with Ohtani, and if he's going to be able to go be a full two-way player the whole year. Julio Teheran, Dylan Bundy, Griffin Canning's potentially injured. You have no idea what's going on there, and this is a lineup that yes, you get better with Anthony Rendon most certainly, but you still have Albert Pujols in the twilight of his career. You do still have Mike Trout. Tommy La Stella is still young enough where you don't know what you're getting. I agree with you. The Angels are and again, if you're a baseball fan, and Matt, you know this probably better than almost anybody else, but if you're a baseball fan, there's nothing better than watching Mike Trout, and baseball needs Mike Trout in the playoffs and to be great for the sport. But as much as we can root it, it doesn't always we can't always will it into existence for the Angels this year.
Correct, and you forgot about Upton. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure you. No, but I say it because Rendon is a phenomenal player, and I really, really enjoy him. I think he is. He really is a stud, and they got him. He's a great player, and he's going to thicken up that lineup. So offensively, yes, they're going to be better. Look, Dylan Bundy, to me, is not the difference between the playoffs and not the playoffs.
Yeah.
Julio Teheran, a couple of years ago, was a formidable top-of-the-rotation guy. I don't know if that plays in the American League. Maybe it will. Ohtani, my understanding is there won't be any pitching until May, late May,
right,
early June maybe. I mean, look, I would love for them to be good. I think it would be great, and they're going to be good. I don't know if they're playoff good. I don't. Let me tell you this: they and the Rangers, got dominated last year by the Astros and the A's. So both of those teams' own division got dominated by the two best teams. I mean dominated. So you have to now flip it to the point where you're close to 500 against them. You got to go from winning 6 or 7 games against those teams, each of them, to maybe winning. I don't know. 10 or 11?
Yeah.
10 again? That's a big, you double that, right? Because against each team. Now you've made up 6 or 7 games. Okay, Now you're knocking on the door of 80 wins. But it's going to be a tough road.
It's going to be interesting, and you bring up the Rangers, and that brings us to a segment here that we like to play with our fans. It's called Pepper. We take social media questions and email questions. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Just search Caught Listening by Public House Media, or email the show, caughtlisteningphm@gmail.com. Matt, we'll take the questions. You and I will just play Pepper back and forth with it. You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. Let's go.
All right. First one here is from Jeff via email. You brought up the Rangers, so we'll start there with the Rangers. Chances they finish above 500 and maybe sneak in as the top 3 team in the AL West. Not a playoff team, but a 500 or better team.
Chances, you mean percentage-wise?
Yeah.
I don't know how that park is going to play. It's a new park. Is that they going to hit the chances 500? I'm going to go 500, 50-50.
I'm going to go a little above that. The addition of Corey Kluber, I love. I love him as a pitcher. The addition of Todd Frazier and a veteran presence, I think, could potentially help them as well. So I'll go 60% there for the Rangers getting above 500.
I don't think that's bad. I just want to see the pitching. The pitching is better. Mm-hmm. Kluber is when healthy, very good, and they definitely have a rotation that is underrated and not talked about. But I'm going to stick with 50%.
Okay, no problem. This one comes from Lexi on Instagram. More likely to not happen. Houston Astros miss the playoffs, or Mike Trout doesn't win the AL MVP. So which one of those will not happen, I guess? Which one is most likely to happen?
I think Mike Trout, the MVP, is more likely to not happen.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree with you 100%. I mean, it's tough to say the Astros don't make the playoffs, especially in this division, but there's Aaron Judge already potentially being hurt. Who knows with who's going to challenge him there in the AL without Mookie Betts? That's the biggest question to me.
I agree. I think that's true. I think the Yankees, the team that nobody really gives the love to is the Rays.
Yeah.
Can they beat the Yankees? I think the Yankees are too deep. Mm-hmm. I mean, look, Astros would have to they'd have to really, really struggle to not make the postseason, in my opinion. And when you're talking about an MVP, you're talking about one guy.
Right.
If he has a really bad month or gets hurt, well, the chances of him winning, So I'm going to say Trout.
Yep. Okay. Fair enough. I think I can agree with you on that one there. Last one here. This one is Mike on Twitter is asking, better situation for baseball: the Astros miss the playoffs or the Astros win the World Series? What's the better situation for baseball?
That is a great question. Oh my goodness, I never even thought of that in those terms. I didn't. And I have a lot of time to sit around thinking. All right, so let me think about this. All right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm for baseball. I'm going to say it'll be better for them to win the World Series, and I'll tell you why. Mm-hmm. They are going to be watched like a hawk the entire year. They're not going to be able to burp in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
So if they win, I'm going to assume they do it cleanly, and it will diminish what they did by cheating. In other words, they're going to say, or baseball is going to say, this is still a great team. Mm-hmm. This was not a mediocre team that won.
Right.
This was a really good team that had more of an edge than they legally should have. So do you agree or disagree?
No, I 100% agree with you on that. And for the history of the game, in 20, 50, 100 years, when we look back, it will be better for the sport of baseball for the Astros to win the World Series this year because, like you said, it'll diminish, and in my opinion, if not exonerate, the Hall of Fame capabilities of Justin Verlander, Alex Bregman, Jose Altuve, George Springer, Carlos Correa. Go down the list of these guys who are on Hall of Fame trajectories but are going to have this black eye, and it almost exonerates that if they go out and win the World Series. I'm not an Astros fan, but I am rooting for them to win the World Series for the sport of baseball. Not to mention, just a little cherry on top there, Mr. Dusty Baker gets a World Series title, and it makes everything so much better with the world. That's there for me as well, is not only the Astros in the history, but Dusty Baker as well.
You know, that's a great point that you bring up, is that you have a team that you want to hate. If you're a random fan, random fan, I'm not talking, if you live down there in Texas and that's your team, you're going to stand by them and good for you and whatever. But if you have no attachment or allegiance to the Astros, as I have none, zero. You have this team you want to hate, but you have a manager that you can't help but love.
Yep.
And he is a class act. And you nailed it. You nailed it. And let me tell you this. I don't want to take up too much of your time.
No, you're fine.
When they hired him, that was the perfect hire. There was nobody that I can think of would be better for that job. He is respected. He is liked. He is beloved. He is a decent human being, beyond decent. And he has seen everything in this game. And if you want a guy who can in today's game, take what he's going to have to deal with and deal with it, it's him.
100%.
And I hope for him, I hope he wins.
Yeah.
I don't know that I feel that way about the players, but for the game, it would probably be a good thing.
100%. 100% agree with you. He's Matt Yallof of MLB Network. You can follow him on Twitter at Matt Yallof MLB. As always, we appreciate the time. Thanks so much, pal.
Hey, thank you for having me, and enjoy the year.
You too, bud. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
It's Matt Yallof of MLB Network. Again, you can follow him on Twitter at Matt Yallof, YALLOF MLB. Always appreciate his insight and happy to have him on the show. 4 out of 6 divisions are down. Next week, we will focus on the AL Central. Twins, Indians, White Sox, Royals as well, as we get set and continue on just a little bit closer to opening day 2020. Don't forget you can submit your questions every single week by searching Caught Listening by PHM on Twitter, Instagram, and on Facebook, or email the show, caughtlisteningphm@gmail.com. You can also find us wherever you get your podcasts, Google and Apple Play, iHeartRadio, Spreaker.com, Stitcher.com, and of course, publichousemedia.org. Find me on Twitter as well, at Chris Heimel. And until next week, you've been Caught Listening.